My name is Petra Siniawski, and I'm the Associate Director for Wicked in London. Our show is the American show, and my job is we have the American creative team, which is the director, Joe Mantello, the choreographer, Wayne Cilento, and the music supervisor, Steve Aremus. Now, my job is to make sure that their work is sustained and maintained throughout the performances. So Wicked now will be celebrating 6 years in London. So obviously every year we have a change of cast. Not everybody. Some people we like to stay, some people we think it's time for them to go. So we have auditions once a year for especially ensemble and also for the principals. This year we're replacing 10 principals and we're replacing something like 12 ensemble. Now my job is to audition all the people for the new cast, and then my job after that is to rehearse them. So I have to teach them the show, and then after that, once they've opened, the American company, the creatives, come to London. They look over the work that has been done. They'll just what we call polish little bits and pieces, and then they go back to America. And then I'm left with the show, and really, basically, my job, if you wanted to put it into a phrase, is quality control, so that I have to make sure the show is as the Americans would like it. And that's basically what it is. Any college can only prepare you to a certain level, and hopefully that college, I would say, can give you a platform of excellence. But once you really start learning, once you've left the college, yes, they can tell you certain things, how to conduct yourself at auditions, make sure that you have the right audition songs, that if you're a dancer, that your technique is to a certain standard. But then the responsibility is up to you. So if, for instance, you find that, especially from a dance point of view, that the choreographers that are popular are more what we call contemporary, then you as a dancer should make sure that you are familiar with that style. Or if it's more street dancing, you've got to make sure that you could understand the vocabulary of street dancing. You know what I mean? It's after you leave college, then there's always that bridge that you have to cross, and it's up to you to keep developing yourself. But a college can only take you so far. Then after that, it's your responsibility as an artist. The great thing about the show is every time we have a new cast, although obviously there is a criteria to every part. You know, like the Elphaba has to be able to be an amazing singer, but also she has to be a very, very good actress. Like the Galinda has to be a very good comedian, but also with a phenomenal voice. And what's interesting from my point of view is that each person who does it brings something of themselves, and it's either using that unique thing that they have, their talent, or it's making sure that they have the right timing, meaning comedy timing, the acting, you know, that everything is with the right intention for the actors. So that's what I enjoy doing the most. You know what I mean? That's the most challenging part, is just making sure that they are truthful to the character's journey throughout the story. Artists now, especially ensemble players, have to be much more diverse. You know, they have to be they have to be able to, there was a time when the ensemble, you were a dancer, and that's all you did. You were a singer, that's all you did, But now there's, especially I would say in the last 15 years, gradually, but now very much so, because economically it's cheaper to put on shows, when people can cross over, what we call crossover, from a dancer to a singer. And everybody is now what we would call a triple threat. They have to be able to do all three things, act, sing and dance, but they specialize in one of them. You know what I mean? So they're a very good singer, but who dances okay, but acts well. You know what I mean? They all have their own specialities. It's like you can be a superb dancer, but you have to be able to sing, because that's what you're expected to do in a musical. And also maybe they understudy somebody, so they have to act. So I would say you have to be much broader in your talents. Well, what we do is, obviously I'm responsible because every part has an understudy, and they have several understudies. So say Elphaba has actually 3 understudies. So, and Glinda, exactly the same, have 3 understudies. Is that what and so again, once the show is up, meaning say the new cast are performing, then I have to get the understudies ready, because, people have injuries, fall ill, so we have to be able to make sure that people are ready to go on. And that can take something like 3 months to make sure that all the covers that. We also have something, and I don't know, what we call swings. Now, these people their responsibility is to the ensemble. And in Wicked, we have something like 6 swings. And their job is they don't have a role on stage, but they have to cover the ensemble, so that often that swing is responsible for 5 people. So they have to learn 5 different, what we call tracks, but it's the tracks of each part. Does that make sense? But it's a hard job, that. It's a very tough job. Because say, for instance, if they go on for somebody, they have to sing their harmony line. They have to, so they have to learn for the same song, maybe 5 different harmonies. And also choreographically with Wicked, the choreography isn't uniformed. So every dancer has a very different choreography from the next person. So that poor swing has to learn those 5 different choreography for one piece. In the directing, because about, I think it's probably 15 years ago again, because you started, before that there were directors who were for musical theatre. Then you went through a phase when the choreographer became a director. People like Bob Fosse. He directed Chicago. He was in dual capacity. You had Michael Bennett. You had Tommy Tune. They were all from a dance background who became directors because they wanted to be in charge of the whole show. That was there was a phase of that. Then we started having musicals like Les Miserables, much more sort of what I would call book-based musicals. So you had people like Trevor Nunn. I don't know, you're familiar with, Trevor Nunn. So more, I would say, legit theatre directors started coming into the musical theatre world. And like Wicked is actually directed by an actor and a director who is from the legitimate theatre. So there's a little bit of, they look for people with strong acting ability. Yes, it has changed. But who knows what happens, and that's the beauty of musical theatre. It keeps evolving. It'll suddenly pop up and everybody will say, oh my goodness, this is new, this is fresh, this is exciting. I mean, good examples of that were way back, a musical called On Your Toes. Now that's something like in the 30s, but it was the first time that narrative and dance and song came together for the story. They weren't just a little number here and somebody singing a song there. It was suddenly the song and the dancing moved the story forward. Then you had something, then the next one to really come out was Oklahoma. Again, that brought those elements really together, beautifully together. Then you had West Side Story. For the first time, you didn't even have an overture. You had a bare stage, almost. You know what I mean? And the dance was very strong. So that suddenly became the era of the dancer. And then after that, you had Chorus Line, where you had no set, and it was just today people talking about their lives. So something will suddenly come up, and Les Mis was a new one, So, there are certain musicals that change the face of that particular genre at that time. Who knows what, will the future be? I mean, it's things like, I'm just trying to think at the moment there seems to be a lot of, or there's a flavour of musicals. There were big musicals happening, like Jesus Christ Superstar. It was very spectacular. Even Wicked is spectacular to look at. Miss Saigon was, with the helicopter. It was all about the look of it. It was a big arena shows. Whereas musicals are now beginning to be a little bit more chamber, what we call a chamber musical. So you no longer have a chorus as such. You maybe just have 8 actors on stage. There's a wonderful, there's quite a few musicals. There's one on Broadway now called Once, and that's, it's a chamber piece. I think there's only about 8 people in it. Well, Wicked has proved very popular because it's a universal story. It's about, I think, any musical that touches the heart somehow, you know what I mean, that people can relate to a situation. Like with, let's say Wicked, for instance, it's just, the bottom line is that somebody will see the goodness in you, regardless of how you look. Like in Wicked, we sponsor anti-bullying, because alphabet is different. In real life, anybody that is maybe physically somehow different or whatever, or in different nationality or whatever it is, they can be bullied at school and all that. And it's just showing that there's somebody, doesn't matter how you look, there's a real person there that, that has a good heart and everything like that. And, Mamma Mia's the same, somebody looking for their parent. I think as long as it touches some real life story, then that would appeal universally. Pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.